Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And in today's video, as promised a few days ago, I'm going to talk about exotic-based weapons in Star Trek Online. Now when it comes to these weapons, there are kind of a couple of weird nuances that I'll be going over in this video, but to make it really simple, I'm going to talk about the basics of how exotic damage works inside the game, along with its scaling alongside a few notable abilities in the game for damage. And then I'll go over the two different types of exotic weapons inside the game. Weapons with radiation base and exotic base, either innate damage on them or those types of procs on the weapons. Feel free to see the time links in this video for all the stuff in this video. So to start off with, for exotic damage, it generally is a type of damage that either isn't energy or torpedo based. If it's a damage that isn't either of those, then it's typically going to be an exotic damage ability and will scale off of your different sources that enhance exotic damage. So like your auxiliary power level, exotic and bonus damage exotic consoles on your ship, as well as your exotic particle generator skill itself, which can be enhanced in your skill tree alongside any EPG consoles that you put on your ship. Keep in mind, a lot of weapon procs also fall into this category. That was a question that I received a little while ago, that after some experimentation, I'm going to give you some basic ones to at least be aware about. Most of these I still don't recommend. My very last slide in this video are the really good ones that I recommend personally. As more of the exotic ones, not the radiation ones that I recommend overall, but they both still can work. Most exotic damage is going to be kinetic damage if it's a science ability, or it will be physical damage if it's a temporal ability. There's different weight resistances things to think about between those different ones, but keep in mind that this type of damage is very synergistic with torpedoes, which is why a lot of your science builds and stuff will often use a lot of torpedoes, simply because of that. Keep in mind there's a lot of other categories that I could talk about in this video, like terrain expertise, control amplification, and control duration, that I really just don't have time for. There might be another video in the future that I might talk about those, but I won't be talking about those today. So here's just some basics here for the different abilities that are exotic. For kinetic based, you have gravity well, sensory vortex, and a bunch of other ones here. Physical based is your temporal abilities alongside destabilizing resonance beam. This one is you're able to get through a mission, and I highly recommend getting it. Feedback pulse is another weird one that technically doesn't scale on either of these because it's based upon the incoming energy damage from enemies. Not only was this nerfed into ground with Season 13, but also because the most hard-hitting damaging stuff from enemies currently is from torpedoes and mines. This doesn't scale with that because it's a different damage type altogether, which is why you basically don't see feedback pulse anymore on builds. For this video itself, there are a lot of various clicky consoles that enhance exotic damage and are enhanced by exotic damage. There is the page on the STO Wiki I feel covers this pretty well. There are a few notable exceptions, but for the most part they exist there. If you guys want me to, I can rank all those consoles by my biased opinion as a science tank inside the game for my science main. I don't feel that would be particularly helpful to most people though, since most people that do science DPS and just burst everything down as fast as possible. There are a few weapon procs that are enhanced by exotic damage. Most of them aren't viable, but they exist. And then there's two types of exotic weapon types for their procs and things. There's the exotic damage generally, which is enhanced by exotic and bonus exotic damage, as well as EPG. When it comes to the raw formulas, based on how it is, it's unclear since in the description of EPG it says total exotic damage instead of like regular or bonus. Actually, I'll go back to that slide just to show you it. Yeah, right here it says total exotic damage increase. So this to me is not as clear as to whether it's really regular or bonus or it's a calculation done at the end. I haven't found clear formats to really say whether it is. There is a calculator online that has some stuff, and it'll tell you roughly what your stuff is, but the calculator doesn't show you the formula. So anyway, just something to be aware about. The other type is radiation damage. It's its own unique weird thing inside Star Trek Online. Same thing as with like fire damage, for instance, but there isn't anything to enhance fire damage. But you can enhance radiation damage, so that's cool. Weapons are enhanced typically by one or the other. There are some that have a slight nudge to be able to do both, but most of the weapons are one type or the other in general. Keep in mind with this video, with things I'm about to say, this is my best guess based upon a few tests and 1v1 scenario between my Romulan science captain versus my Discovery science captain. Those are tested over several patches, slowly, as thus some of this could be inaccurate or flat out wrong. So keep all that in mind. I'm sure a lot of you who know a lot more about this than I do are probably going to immediately get into the comments and tell me every single thing that I did wrong. And that is totally cool. I'm totally happy with that. The point of this channel is for everyone to help each other, so feel free to clarify anything that I say wrong in this video or anything that I omit that you feel should have been included. So first off, we'll go with radiation-based weapons. There's a lot more of these. However, most of these really suck, so we'll go through them pretty quickly. For the experimental weapons, these are both pretty straightforward. They both say in their description that they either fully do radiation damage or half of their damage is radiation. So already right there, and also with testing, it was confirmed that yes, both of these do radiation damage. That scales off of anything that enhances radiation damage. The experimental perimeter lace sheller is off of the Zinkethi Escort from the Zinkethi Lockbox / the Exchange. The other one here is the Alliance Hyper Cannon off of your Science Escorts, or what I call Science Escorts anyway. It's the Andorian Pilot Escort for Federation Captains, Lethean one for KDF, and the Daewon one for Romulan Captains. Romulans can also just get their Allied Escorts and just do it that way. This came out prior to the announcement that Romulans could fly Allied starships, so that's why there's a lot more Romulan ships with traits and things than there is now. Also, a lot of Cryptic realized that a lot of people who flew Romulan ships, we bought the whole packs, they never flew the Romulan ships, they always just flew their Allied faction ships. Anyway, for mission reward stuff, the Trilithium Cobalt was the only one that I could find that really scale off radiation damage. There probably might be other ones out there, but this is only I could really find. This is one of the worst torpedoes in the game, in my opinion, because it has such a long recharge time. I don't feel that it's particularly worth it. The quantum phase torpedo is a little bit better, in my opinion. It does at least a little bit of drain, and you might consider putting this on your ship. It's not really a radiation-based weapon, but this is my mini mission rewards section of this video. I make my own rules on these videos, so I felt that it was still appropriate to put this here as saying, this does exist technically, but this sucks, you use this instead. This is from the Sunrise mission, this one's from the Beyond the Nexus mission. The only reason why you really use this one is if you wanted the full 3-piece for extra damage resistance rating on your ship, if you didn't want to put a damage resistance rating console on your ship. Alright, so for normal weapons, the first one that we're going to talk about is the counter command weapons. There's the reputation set at stealth with the biomolecular photon torpedo and the turrets. There's 4 different energy types of here. There's phaser, disruptor, plasma, and tetrion. Keep in mind though, from the mission surface tension, the counter command multi-conduit energy relay only enhances phaser and disruptor damage alongside the radiation. This change to the reputation projects did not change the mission stuff that some reputations have alongside the reputation stuff. So if you're going to go with this type of thing for the radiation, go with phaser or disruptor. Don't go with one of the other ones. Actually, I'd recommend going with disruptor because there's other stuff that enhances disruptor as well. Just saying. The biomolecular photon torpedo is also one of the hardest hitting high yield torpedoes in the entire game. So if you're going for a straight torpedo build that is not based upon exotic damage, you'll want to use this for your high yield version. it hits like a truck. It hits really hard. I'm I'm just not that good with microwaving the different abilities for torpedoes. Plus, torpedoes aren't really that great for sustained threat generation. It's really good for spike threat, but not really good for sustained, which is what you really need for tanking inside the game. Turret's okay as well, but yeah. Next category is Deterrent Task Force weapons. Deterrent Task Force torpedo is also pretty good too, more because of the proc itself, but it also is a decent hard-hitting torpedo too. The Disruptor Beam Array and the Dual Heavy Cannon, because of the proc, there are a lot of people that say that even if you had the wrong energy type, this would still be good enough on its own with that proc, with the passive itself. The proc Withering Radiation, which you get off of the Withering Disruptor energy weapons as well from the Reputation store, are also pretty good. That scale with radiation damage on your ship. It's also one of the best threat generation procs for disruptors in general, and it is pretty good for a general pug run type of disruptor. When I eventually do a redo of disruptor things, you probably will see a few of them on the ship. But anyway, we also have a phaser variant of the Deterrent Task Force weapon now, and of course we also have the disruptor dual heavy cannon and phaser dual heavy cannon thing for this too. A lot of people like this is still one of the best sets for Reputation if you're going to be doing torpedoes, because the torpedo is pretty good. The energy weapon still is good on its own, and then the console lowers cooldowns of torpedoes. So, and then the 3-piece is also pretty nice too. So it's actually a decent set overall. But yeah, and of course I have to include Diffuser Tetron from the lobby store because it's my favorite lobby set. The 2-piece with the torpedo plus the console that you don't see here adds 15% shield resistance and enhances projectile damage in it. Plus the portable radiation, as we're talking about in this video, this radiation does stack with EPG a little bit, but a little bit more with radiation, which is why I'm putting it here. And it goes through shields pretty easily, so this is pretty nice. All right, now we'll go ahead and get into exotic-based weapons. Here's the 2 basic ones here. For some reason, I don't know if this was intentional or not by Cryptic, but electrical damage right now scales with radiation damage. I don't know why. This doesn't make sense to me as to why this is the case, because we have a separate radiation damage experimental weapon, but the electrical ones also scale off of this. The electrical ones scale off of EPG. It's weird, but in my testing, that's what the numbers said. So could be wrong, but that's what my testing said. The experimental hyperoxide ion stream projector is the default one on most escorts. Basically, if you don't know what your experimental weapon is and you haven't changed it out, it's probably this one. There's also the field distortion overcharge pulse from the Gemini Vanguard Heavy Raider. Either 3000 Zen through the C-Store or through buying the big, gigantic Gemini Vanguard pack. That costs a lot of money. You do need to get a Tier 6 Mastery on the ship to have your other factions have access to the ship, but it's a decent raider. I like the warship better. I just wish the warship had command abilities with, like, command track fire, but whatever. Decent stuff here. But anyway, it's here in this video where we start to get to the stuff that's actually stuff you might want to put on your ship for real this time. The Delta Alliance Reputation has some pretty good stuff. Thorn Infused Polaron's nice. Thorn Infused Polaron has that with its Unsealed Thorn Radiation, it placates the enemy so that it's harder for them to hit you or they fire less, depending on who you talk to. This is enhanced by EPG, same as this guy, because it does a radiation cloud. is kind of why it does it this way. The neutron torpedo is pretty nice. Other ones in there. Back when the binaural jump pack worked properly, I would use that with a neutron torpedo, and it would be pretty nice for some good extra exotic damage and for cooldown reduction on the neutron torpedo. For some reason, the cooldown isn't working properly right now after the Age of Discovery expansion. Me and several other people who have asked about it without any response. Then again, I'm not someone who's going to be talking to, the super higher ups at Cryptic, I've only been on YouTube for a couple months, really. So it's not like I have my name carries a lot of weight in Cryptic. But it's still a decent torpedo. But the last ones are the ones that you should really be talking about. Oh yeah, those ones, by the way, you have anti-proton as well. It's alongside the proton. The last ones are the ones I highly recommend that if you have any science builds, put these both on your ship. They're both insanely good and synergistic together, especially with Gravity Well. The first one is the Gravimetric Photon Torpedo Launcher from the Dyson reputation. This has a 33% chance, or basically a third, one of every 3 of these will make a 1 kilometer gravimetric rift, which is a tiny gravity well. That's what this is. It puts out tiny gravity wells that scales off of a kinetic damage, which by the way is EPG. Fun thing with that. Does other weird things against the Voth, but yeah, whatever. That's not really important. This on torpedo spread is one of the best torpedo spread torpedoes in the entire game. It's just so insanely good. Combined with the particle emission plasma torpedo, which is actually a craftable torpedo. We don't talk about crafting too much because we have reputations, lobby, and mission stuff that has by and large beaten out a lot of our crafting stuff inside the game. Science is really basically the lone exception where we still have stuff from crafting that's still good on science, which I think is weird considering different things with cannon captains in the game. But yeah, I might talk about that in a different video. Well, I will talk about that in January, but anyway, the thing about this thing is that whenever this thing detonates, it's a 100% chance that whenever it detonates, it creates a plasma particle emission cloud. And to foes within a 0.5 kilometer radius, it does every second a lot of plasma damage as well as a lot of other debuffs. This plasma damage scales with EPG. This scales with EPG. There's only 2 types of plasma effects that scale with EPG. There's this guy, and then there's the plasma science consoles from the Fleet Embassy, the Romulan Embassy from a long time ago, because it adds it enhances plasma-based exotic damage, which is this and its own proc itself. That plasma explosion proc for energy weapons will deal extra plasma damage, which is based upon EPG. Keep in mind, this on releasing for a long time afterwards. These type of plasma consoles off the embassy, they were broken to the point that they were extremely potent, to the point that literally everyone put these on their ship. They were looking for ships that had as many science consoles as possible. Even the energy bills wanted 4 or 5 science consoles on their ships to put a bazillion amount of these on there. It got to the point that what Cryptic did was, instead of like adjust these slightly or brought everything up to it, they nerfed this into the ground to the point that these are basically non-viable inside the game currently. In fact, you would never use this particular one because this is a nullifier. It's only if you're going to be a threat tank would you actually want an amplifier. And if you've seen in my builds, I don't use amplifiers in my consoles. I do technically have some initial threat generation in occasionally one trait and in the History Will Remember trait. However, keep in mind, guys, I use History Will Remember not for its threat generation. Everything else on it is good enough for me personally, for the way that I like the tank, that it's good enough without the extra threat generation. But anyway, basically, when it comes to TLDR for this little section is there's 3 different types of plasma damage in the game. There's instant plasma damage, there's DOT plasma damage, and then there's plasma cloud plasma damage. The plasma cloud plasma damage from this weapon and the stuff off of the proc off of this console is the plasma cloud type of stuff that scales off of EPG. Even though like plasma does a lot of threat, these are the only ones that actually scale off of science stuff in general inside the game. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but because it would be cool to have a lot of other weapons that did the same thing, but based on my testing, this is the only one that seemed to do so. But anyway, that's my basic stuff for this video. I definitely probably did include some stuff that I probably should have. Feel free to tell me in the comments, and to everyone else who watched this video, what else should have been included and talked about more in this video. Beyond that, feel free to like and subscribe if you like this type of content. On Thursday, I will be talking about my science tank builds inside the game. So feel free to subscribe, especially so that you get and click the bell so you get a notification whenever that video comes out. Anyway, thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.